Hello, everyone. My name is Katy of Greenland Quilter, and today is Saturday, and tonight is going to be Scrappy Sew time, and I have Eric here with me, and I'm going to go ahead and let Eric introduce himself, and then we'll go from there.
Oops. Hello, everybody. Happy Saturday. Happy Saturday night for some of you, or maybe even Sunday morning for some of you. My name is Eric, and my channel is called Treasure Heart Creations, in which I do a lot of quilting stuff, but we also dabble in a lot of crafting, paper crafting, wreath making, basket making, you name it. But I have a live that goes on every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. And sometimes I just kind of do like an impromptu live session. So yeah, I'm kind of scattered all over the place, but mostly concentrating on quilting. Again, that's Treasure Heart Creations. I'm Eric, and I'm very excited to actually be doing one of my favorite things today, which is sewing scraps together. So look forward to being with all of you here.
It's weird. I look like I'm in a shadow, doesn't it? Must be one of these lights not working right. I don't know. Very strange.
You
Anyway,
look fine.
thank you. Okay, it's strange when you put the phone right here in front. My tripod got knocked off the desk, and the part that sits on top of the tripod to hold the cell phone, it has
Uh-huh.
this hinge thing. So when it hit the floor, it broke it off at the hinge. So now I don't have a tripod for right now. So we're
Oh,
using it with another little gadget I brought home with me, but I don't like it as well. But it'll work for today.
it'll
So let me
work.
say hello to everyone in the channel, and then we're going to talk about what we're going to do tonight. So hello, Susan and Candace and Charlotte. Welcome, welcome. Hello, Pat. Hi, Denise. Um, hello, Carissa. And I think this is the first time me seeing you here. And hey, Judy Smith. How is everybody tonight? I hope everybody's excited about what we're going to be doing tonight. And there's my honey. Hello, Essa. Okay, so here's what's going to happen. We are doing what we call a scrappy sew night, and we'll be doing this in two parts. And Eric is going to show you how to take. You're going to use strings, right? Or
Um, well, I'll
or
show some examples of what I've done with crumbs as well.
okay. So he's going to show you about the strings and the crumbs, and then he is going to teach you how to take your scraps, string scraps and stuff, and turn it into a really cool block. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to him, and I'm going to spotlight him so that you can see what he's doing, and he's going to take the lead for tonight.
All right, guys. Actually, can you spotlight the overhead one?
The other one, okay, hold on.
Yeah.
I'm going to take this one off and
So I
spotlight this.
figure before I get started, I give you a little bit of eye candy because um, this is the inspiration, or maybe just to give you some inspiration as to what you can do when you want to be creative and using your scraps, your strings, whatever little pieces of crumbs that you got together, because there's more. If you think outside the box, there's a lot that you can do. So, oh, sorry, this is out of order, but um, let's take a look at this for example. I think most people, when they think of strings and when they think of string blocks, this is what they would imagine, in which it's just basically string. Uh,
Uh-oh, did we lose the voice? I think something happened to your audio. Can y'all hear, or can you hear me, Eric? Uh-oh, something happened to the audio. Hey, Eric, can you hear me? Eric, we can't hear you. Hello. Oh, we lost one of his cameras. Yeah, we've lost his camera. Eric, can you hear me? Hello. Eric. Hello. Uh-oh. Yeah, I can't hear him either. He's working on the other one, so his other video must have went down. Okay. I guess your other
Sorry.
camera went down. So um you're gonna have to start all over again.
No problem.
Okay. Um yeah. So you want me to spotlight back again, right? So I'll turn that back
Uh,
on and then you go from there and just go back and start again. It's okay. It's
okay.
all let's relax everyone. All right. Here we go. Come on.
Okay. Can you hear me still?
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So, um, let's see. Where did I go? So when you think of a string block, this is traditionally what you would kind of think of, where you have you sew a square of strings together and then you kind of put a block. And this is kind of a typical setting of what that block would look like, where it's kind of in this diamond shape here. And I made about 4 of these in the past, and I'm the type of person where if I do it a little too much, or if it seems just to be a little bit too monotonous, I get bored very quickly. So I decided, well, let me do some experimentation and see what I can do with a string block like this. But instead of putting it in this setting, can I make it differently, or can I do something different with it? So that's where I kind of decided to start exploring. Now, the idea behind any scrap quilt, like a string, or if you're making crumb blocks, what you're really doing is you're building out a very, very unique and custom fabric where it's going to be a lot of different colors, a lot of different textures, all kind of just coming together. So if you're building out this custom fabric, well, then can you just use it like any other type of fabric like this and just start slicing and dicing it and start treating it like it's any other fabric? And so that was the question that sort of kickstarted me into thinking of using these strings a little differently. So one of the first things that I did was I decided, okay, now if I use a string, can I make a traditional kind of quilt block out of it? And so that's how I chose this turn dash, as most of us would recognize. And this is a pretty standard or kind of common traditional quilt block that you can construct with just half square triangles, squares, and then these sort of rectangle shapes here. So taking a solid reading fabric, pairing it with the string, and just kind of treating it like it's any other fabric. You can make half square triangles, you can do just cut out squares, rectangles, you name it. You know, just take a traditional block and just use strings and pair it with some solid fabrics here. That's one way. That was a way that I kind of creatively or just thought of doing it or using the strings in a different manner. Now there's a whole, let's see. But you don't necessarily have to do just a turn dash. How about star block? Here's
Wow.
the strings. Here I made the flying geese unit and just kind of sewed it together, paired it with a different type of fabric. And you got a very, very intricate and very interesting looking star block here. There's
That's
also,
really cool.
now think of other things like, or different quilting techniques like applique. In this block, I used the strings as the background fabric, and then of course paired it with a solid reading fabric to create the flower. And you can also do the reverse, where you use your crumbs or your scraps as the applique piece, and then you put it on a solid reading fabric. That's another example. This block has different names to it. Some I see they call it starburst. I've also seen this being called exploding star. But basically, you take one piece of fabric here. This is the background fabric, and then you start sewing your strings at an angle.
Uh-huh.
And then, so this is one quadrant in which you work on that one quadrant. You make 4 of them, put it together, there's your star.
Awesome. That is very cool.
And notice with this, I did a combination of just crumb pieces here, as well as long string pieces. So you can mix it up and you really can't tell in the overall scheme of things. Here's the same block where I just only used strings. And I know all of us have a collection of specialty rulers that make some unique shape. One of them that I can think of that we might all have in our stash is a Dresden. So look at that.
Yeah, that is awesome. Wow.
Okay, so you just construct it like you normally would do on a regular Dresden blade, but instead of using just all solid pieces of fabric, I just interspersed it with the string blocks or string pieces here. Okay.
I would have never even thought about using a Dresden.
I didn't finish the full Dresden because this actually turned out to be really huge, but you get the idea behind it.
Yep.
Now,
So that
this
means
is
you
a
could
block.
probably. Ooh, go ahead.
So what I did here was, this is actually I used a ruler. This is what they call the QCR mini ruler, in which it helps you to sew these type of curved pieces like that.
Uh-huh.
And I was just kind of experimenting one day, and I said, you know what? Let me take that ruler, let me make this flower and see what it looks like, and paired it with this solid background. this is what I got. I could have also
Wow.
done the reverse where I took the solid fabric, made the flower out of that, and then used strings to actually create the background. It'll give you a different effect with it. Okay. So when you think of strings and when you think of crumbs, don't think, or think outside the box is the point, in which, you know, experiment and see what you can come up with, because you might surprise yourself with all the variations and different things that you can do with it. And this is where it's, for me, it was getting really exciting because I started looking at all these different possibilities. So
I would have never thought about doing it like that. I thought about trying to make pinwheels with them using like a solid with the string,
mhm.
but I didn't know if that would how difficult that would be to do it like that.
Not difficult at all. Just think of it like, in fact, I might just think of it like, again, when you put your strings together, you're just creating a custom fabric. So once you get your square piece, you can treat it just like any other quilting fabric. So if you want to make a half square triangle out of it, go ahead. It's not really much different than what you would normally do, other than it's just string pieces being put together.
Okay, babe, can you leave that light on?
Okay, so let's do this. Can we switch it to the other camera, and then I can
Yes.
bring you up close to the quilt that's behind me. Okay,
That
sorry, I know this is going to be the Blair Witch Project where the camera's going to shake a lot, but
that is impressive. I like the churn dash the way you've done that with the strings.
okay. So this was an actual, when I got the churn dash block, since I made that first one that I just showed you, and I loved it so much that I decided to actually make a whole quilt out of it. And so you can kind of see me, like in this lavender one, you
Mhm.
see that I did use the solid fabric to actually create the actual churn dash, and then the background was the string blocks here. But take a look at this here, where I kind of inverted this. And so
Yeah.
I used the strings to actually make the churn dash, and then use the solid fabric to make as the background.
Mhm.
I also played around with the different sizes. So like, as you can kind of see here with uh, this block here, I went with a thicker uh, solid fabric, and then went with a thinner string piece here. And that gave it a different look. And then if you can see on this green one here, the string pieces were actually the thinner parts, and then kind of inverted that. The kind of did an inversion of the that blue one that you just saw. So you can kind of have a look at everything. Sorry.
You've given me some ideas here of what I could do with all these scraps I have for sure, and have it look that way. That's beautiful.
Okay. Now these square pieces here, these are actually all the trimmings from when I did the regular blocks. So I
Hmm.
had all these extra little pieces in which I decided to just kind of sew it into a square and put it as part of the side set triangle. Otherwise, this whole thing would have just been one solid piece of fabric, in which, yeah, I kind of thought it needed something a little extra in this spot. So I decided to put these squares together, and then it's pretty much all around the quilt.
Wow,
So,
that's a great way of using it up and making a quilt look quite different.
mhm.
I think that should be entered in a quilt show. You don't see that style very often.
No.
So would you consider that to be a traditional or an modern, more modern?
Um, the block. the churn dash block is, I mean, it's not anything new. For me, I would kind of consider the block itself to be traditional, but I don't know if this would fall in the category of modern, because when I think of modern quilts, I think of just basically solid reading fabrics with not a whole ton of color. And the modern style is more, how would you say? Like it's taking a block and kind of deconstructing it somehow, or
Yeah.
making it a little bit more unique than what you traditionally see. So this might just be in somewhere in between. I don't know.
Yeah.
But the definition of a modern quilt is definitely changing year over year, because what's new now becomes old tomorrow.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I don't know. I would kind of consider this just to be kind of partially traditional, but then partially kind of pushing the envelope too. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. You know, there was a section in QuiltCon where it was called maximalism, and there was several quilts where they just went crazy with just little pieces of scrap. They took the one colorful solid, it wasn't a solid color, that's not what I mean. I mean, they used every part of the quilt in color, and all of it was real colorful. I have a picture of it. I'll find it and send it to you.
Okay.
There's some comments in here. Eric, you put an awesome spin on the churn dash. Andrea says the block is traditional, but the technique is modern and original. Pat says that's a really neat quilt. Very nice, Eric from June. They are saying they love it. Andrea says she likes to use dryer sheet as her foundation for string block, and just keep adding on until she gets several yards of fabric, and then she cuts them into block like fabric. And Jackie says, looks like that would work with a drunkard's path template as well.
Yes, yes, yes.
Hey, Jackie. And hello, Joyce. All right, so anyone I didn't type hello to, hello from me and Eric. So Eric is going to show you how you're going to make one, right?
Sure.
So I'm going to let Eric take the lead here on showing you how to make a churn dash using string. And then, because we're doing 2 nights of this, and next week we're going to continue on with doing scraps. And I wanted to show you guys something while he's getting ready. Here, I'm gonna take you off for a spotlight. Tell me when you're ready. Let me show them what I was messing with today. So I know that some people are participating in Donna's. If you're a member of Donna's channel, she's doing a block a week. I took the block that we were supposed to do this week and I turned it into this.
That is awesome.
Do you think it looks okay? Or do you think
I love it.
Yeah, because all I did was just put the string art in the middle and use the outside, because there's supposed to be empty space here for this block 5. Actually, let me show you, where did I put it? So you can see what the block, oh, here it is. Here's what the block was supposed to look like.
Oh, okay.
And I turned it into this. Okay, let me know when you're ready.
That's awesome. All right, so.
Which camera?
We can do the overhead.
Okay, that's the one where I can see the block?
Yep.
Okay, gotcha. All right, there we go.
Okay. So I figured if for people who are beginning quilters, they might not even know what a string block really is or a string square, and they may not even know how to construct one. So I figure we'll spend the time of sorry, I'll spend some time just kind of showing how to make the block or make the string square. Normally though, if it's a rainy day and I just don't feel like working on or doing like a quilt block where I need to kind of concentrate, I just make strings, because this is one of those things where you can kind of just do it mindlessly. And I keep a stack of them with just nothing but, or just kind of hold it to until I get like the inspiration, or if I need a charity quilt. That's what strings and scrap quilts like this are really awesome to have around. So this is what a typical string square will look like. Now, some of them, I choose to sew it on diagonally, but you can just sew it on vertically or horizontally, whichever way you want to look at it. But that's basically quilter's choice. Now, I also do, this is a 6.5-inch unfinished square. I typically will sew it this size, simply because, number one, I have a very convenient 6.5-inch ruler here that I can just kind of easily trim it down when I'm ready. And number two, since whenever I work with strings, I typically will do like a 12.5-inch unfinished block. So that means 12-inch finished. 6.5 is a pretty decent size where I'm not going to be sewing strings on forever. But then it's a usable size for me that if I do need to trim it down to a smaller size, it's easy to do, and I'm not wasting a whole ton. So I choose to go with 6.5. You can do it any size that you want to. I know there's people that do whole 12.5-inch. Some of them do 5-inch. Some people do 8-inch. So you can kind of decide how you want to, or what size square that you need. But the size of square that you need also is kind of heavily determined upon what the final block size is. So keep that in mind. Again, I just choose to do a 6.5-inch square because, again, it's convenient for me and I can kind of use it in different ways. So, and this is where, I forgot who was saying this, but your foundation. I use newspaper because, number one, it's free. And number two, I need to get rid of it anyway or use it up somehow. So you can use newspaper, you can use just regular copy paper. There's different types of foundations that you can use. As that other person, forgot who it was, they say they use the dryer sheets. I've done that. That works really well. I know people that use like their, I don't want to say ugly fabric, but their undesirable fabric. That's what they use the foundation as. But I just stick to the good old fashioned paper. Now, you don't have to have a foundation like this. You can just sew the strings or the strips together if you feel comfortable doing that. I do find, though, that when you sew different pieces of fabrics together, whether it's a strip or a string like this, if it's small little crumb pieces, there tends to be a lot of stretch with it. So if you're not going to use the square or use this immediately in a quilt, it does help to keep its original size. It does help to have some kind of foundation on there so that it's not, over time, it doesn't stretch to a different size. Of course, you can always retrim it down to whatever size that it was supposed to be. But yeah, a lot of people ask me, why do you sew the strings onto a piece of paper? That's why. Okay, sorry. I don't know if anybody had any questions about that.
Anyone want to ask a question? I'll read your questions to Eric. So feel free to start talking and asking questions while he's working on this. So far, they're all saying it's great ideas, things like that. Okay. No one's asked a question yet. Wayne did say that soon, so yeah, we'll have to hire Eric to demo quilts. Laugh out loud.
So this is my container of strings. Um, the other common question that I get is, what is a string when it comes to quilting? It's basically strips of fabric, and you can collect this when, like, for example, when you have yardage, and sometimes the yard or the edge is kind of wavy and not cut straight, especially when you
Mhm.
get it from a quilt shop. You know, you have to kind of cut it to make a straight edge. That piece that you cut off, I just, for me, I just throw it in this particular container and then just consider it a string. Now, obviously, if, um, well, the smallest, or I guess the smallest width that you can have on any kind of strip of fabric is 3/4 of an inch. I don't go that small. If it's less than 1 inch wide at the widest point, I just toss it because it's not worth your time to save that piece and try and put it into a quilt because it's just going to disappear within the seam allowances. But like this
Okay,
piece, I'm not
we have a
sure why.
question.
Go ahead.
Nancy wants to know if the ink will bleed onto the fabric from the newspaper.
I have not experienced that. Um, Again, I'm not like rubbing the fabric in, and even if the ink does rub onto the even if the ink does rub onto the fabric, it's on the back side of the fabric, and I've never seen it where it shows right through. So I haven't had a problem with that. And the technology with a lot of this, the new prints, especially on newsprint, is it does rub off a little bit, but not as much as what it used to like in years past. So the ink actually bonds to the paper a lot better. Um, so I haven't had much problems with the ink rubbing off. That's a great
Jackie's
question.
okay, yep. And Jackie says she uses end of bolt stabilizers or interfacing, which that's what I'm using. I guess it's,
Yep.
yeah, interfacing is what I've been using. And Joyce says, Eric, what is the narrowest string you use? And you said 3/4 of an inch, right?
So 3/4 of an inch technically is the narrowest piece that you can use. Um, if it's anything smaller than that, it's just going to get lost in the seam allowance, in which you're just going to add extra bulk to it. So it's not worth saving that piece. So like this here, I mean, this is basically only a 1/2 inch, which I'm not going to save this. I'm just going to toss it because, again, even if I try to use it in any quilt, it's just going to get lost and
Yeah.
it's not going to be visible. So out this goes. I don't know how it even made it into this
Can you
container.
use those more narrow ones on crumb quilts, or is it the same concept? 3/4
It
of an
would
inch.
be the same concept.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, good.
Okay. So here I got my foundation. And let's see, let me take out a piece. Now, for whatever reason, I have a separate container of strings that are white or kind of more light colored.
Mm-hmm.
And for whatever reason, I always like to start with one consistent color down the center. Now I'm going to lay it diagonally like I normally do. And I start with one piece down the center. Now, again, I could do it just vertically like that, but I choose to kind of lay it on the diagonal. You do want your string to kind of extend beyond whatever foundation you are using here. So, and this does not have to be exact because you are going to trim it down later. So I'm just going to snip it here just so that I'm not having like a whole ton of extra unnecessary fabric kind of flail around here. So,
So
and
Cherry wants to know if you have some pattern ease, would she remove that or keep it in?
she has some
She
pattern.
says she says I have some pattern ease. Would I remove that or keep it in? I'm not sure what she means.
I'm not sure what that is either.
Cherry, can you ask it in a different way? Because I'm not sure what you mean. And
Unless
then
she's trying to fussy cut out a pattern on the fabric.
Okay. Unless she's talking
Um,
about laying it across the paper, I'm not sure.
oh, okay. So starting off with that center strip, I can lay it another strip right sides together, and we will sew this. Again, 1/4 inch seam, just like normal. And I will sew on. Take that off, and I had a little piece of something else on there. Sewed the seam 1/4 inch. Now this does not have to be an exact or an accurate 1/4 inch. In fact, you can practice your 1/4 inch seam with this. As long as you got a good, decent sized seam allowance, you're okay. And I'm finger pressing this back. If you have any kind of pressing tool, I mean, of course, I can take this to the iron and just iron it down, but I like to use, I have a seam roller here, in which I will just run that right over. Right. Notice that this orange or this brownish reddish strip here, it's not exactly cut straight. It's kind of at an angle. I'm not even going to worry about that. Some people I do know, they like to take the time to actually make a straight cut. I don't. Because this is just scraps sewn together. And in the end, when I lay my next piece of fabric, well, I can choose to follow that angle, or I can kind of just eyeball it and straighten out the piece there. So you see how it has a little bit of a sliver here at the top, and then I kind of match it here at the bottom, in which I'm just going to choose to keep it like that. And I'm going to trim off the excess bulk here, and we'll sew again.
Okay, Cherry was talking about because Jackie just helped to clarify what she was talking about. Jackie says she thinks Pattern Ease is a type of foundation paper is sold by the bolt. And that's what Cherry was saying as a foundation is the fiber. So I have never heard of it.
Okay.
So yeah, you would use it the same way, I would think.
I would think that you would use it the same way. I've never actually heard of Pattern Ease. I've never even seen it.
Yeah,
So
neither have I.
I don't quite know exactly, but I mean, never hurts to try it. So
I know that book that you and I were talking about the other day. It was talking about using muslin as for your string, and I've never heard of doing that either. Wouldn't that make that bulky?
It would, but the benefit to that is you don't necessarily have to have a batting on the inside of the quilt when you're ready to quilt it.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Gotcha. Okay, because that book mentioned that, and I was wondering, I was going to ask you about that.
So, and because I'm sewing this on the diagonal, the further out I get to the corners, the smaller the pieces have to be. So I don't necessarily need this whole long, I mean, this is like the whole length with the fabric strip. So let's see, do I have something smaller?
You could always
Maybe.
just clip off the length you need from that big piece too, right?
Right. Okay. Now, the other thing I am paying attention to is the fact that the closer you get to the edge here, what you don't want to have happen is, say, for example, if I do take this green fabric, it might come up short, just like with a
Yeah.
little tip. So you want to pay attention to, if I do sew this green fabric, kind of estimate where it's going to land so that you're not sewing like a small 1/8 of an inch here. I don't know if you guys can see that, but
Yeah, we can
so
see
just
it.
be cognizant of that. Now, I think I am going to just use this green fabric.
Yeah, and I learned that with my little 6.5 inch ones too. That there was a couple times where I got to the end and I'm like, uh-oh, that's not gonna work.
Okay. Now, sometimes I underestimate that or I forget that point. So let me show you a little trick. If these, oh, guess I got to get rid of these scissors. We don't fit anymore. I'll just use this.
Cherry
So
says that despite what she's talking about is used to copy patterns used a lot in dressmaking.
Oh, okay.
That's why I didn't know what it was.
And if you know the term leader and ender, this is um, making a string block like this is a great leader and ender project. So that green fabric, oh, just got a little bit of a sliver in which, you know, if it's less than 1/8 of an inch, I mean, that'll just get caught in the seam allowance anyway. But if it were like that, yeah, I would definitely choose to sew another piece there and just make sure that it goes beyond the tip of that whatever foundation you are using. Okay. So I worked one side, I'm going to work the other side, in which I don't know where this fabric came from, but I'm going to use it.
Whatever it is. Nice and happy.
Yeah. And the other thing that I don't do with string pieces is like, this is really, really wrinkly. I'm not going to iron it flat. You can if you want to, but I'm not going to spend the time doing that. I just want to lay it on there, trim it down to something a little bit more manageable and sew it on.
So while he's sewing and talking, sharing the chat, how many of you like to make string or crumb blocks? Or have you ever, well, wait, let me re-ask the question. How many of you have made string blocks before? Let's do that one first.
Ah, this will be interesting.
Let's see how many has made a string block. I also have a poll going on in the channel. That is colorful. I like the color.
Yeah, I'm not, you know, I have no idea where this fabric came from. Usually, if I see a fabric, I can identify what quilt it was part of, but yeah, this one got me for a loop.
Lori says that, Katie, when I started foundation paper piecing, the designs were printed on muslin. See, I did not know that.
Yep.
Okay, so far, Luane says yes. Nancy puts her hand up. Jackie says lots of string blocks. Joe says yes, quite a few of them. Charlotte says she has. Andrea has. Cherry has. Joe says she loves them. Pat says I have in the past used it for placemats. June says I have made a string quilt. That's what she says. And Judy says I have made strings, crumbs, and just about anything that Eric does, I do. Laugh out loud. So lots of people who like to make these little scrappy things. I think they're beautiful. And I just about have enough batik scrap here to make more than one, I think. More than one quilt of little pieces of left over from what I've been making.
Okay, so I purposely kind of did this where I left maybe about half an inch on the tip of there. That's not going to get hidden in the seam allowance, so I do need to sew another piece onto there, which then I'm going to take of this brown. Now I can choose to, I mean, I don't have to line up or match my fabrics right there at the edge. I can choose to kind of come in. I can choose to even sew it at an angle if I want to.
Mm-hmm.
I can even shoot, well, the only thing you don't want to do is put it like that where it covers the
Yeah.
edge. So, you know, you don't have to necessarily lay your next string piece right there at the edge. You can kind of set it at an angle just to make it a little bit more interesting. And sometimes, like when I have a string, sometimes there's a piece missing here. So I want to hide that and I just put it in like that. So
Okay.
again, very, very beginner friendly. And this, again, as I said before, it's a good way to practice your 1/4 inch for those that are beginning to, or even for us experienced quilters.
Judy,
Excellent with the, go ahead, sorry.
no, June says she's made a string quilt. Judy says she's made string crumb. Yeah, I already read that one. Now, Lori says she has actually made a baby quilt with string block. Jackie says Eric got me started with string block.
Oh,
Carissa says she did your sew along. Joyce says she's never made one, never have. So we've got one
Joyce,
person here that's never done it. Nancy
Joyce,
says,
I would say try it because you might get addicted to it.
yep. Nancy says, to me, we are making fabric when we do this. Colleen says, I'm making 5-inch crumb squares. They will be part of a big dipper quilt. And Jackie says, I keep a pile of pre-cut foundations so that I can sew just for a few minutes when I have the time. So, yep, feedback on that one.
Okay.
Deb S says she's never done one either. So we have
Deb.
2 in this group that's never done it.
Okay, so if those of you who are paying attention, notice that I didn't actually pick a string. I actually just sewed a square on right to cover that triangle. You can do that. You don't have to cover this entire foundation with just strings. Just find a piece that will cover that little end piece
cool.
there. So a lot of people, I know a lot of quilters, like when you do a flip and stitch method where you kind of have like a piece of fabric and then, or you have a piece of fabric here and then you do like a little small square and then you flip it back and then you cut the extra triangle away. They will save that specifically for situations like this, because if it's big enough to cover that whole leftover piece of your foundation, you can use it. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a string piece. You can use a square, you can use those cutaway triangles, just as long as it covers the rest of your foundation there, you're good.
Okay. That's a great idea. So you could even do snowballs around the corners if you wanted to.
Yes, yes. Okay.
So wait a minute. Joe says sew string crumbs together better than in bins, is better than being in bins.
Right.
Wayne says 2 quick, easy blocks he likes to make is the string and the potato chip block. Cherry says it's addicting. Lori says Bonnie Hunter likes to make string block quilts. Hello, Mona. Nancy says, Eric, have you received a grab bag that might be where that, have you ever received a grab bag? Maybe that's where that strip, colorful strip came from.
Probably.
And Joyce says she's planning on making one because she has tons of scraps.
Okay, so now that we have the entire, well, my paper foundation entirely covered with, well, with the exception of that little small piece there. Okay, I know it looks really, really funky right now, but we're going to trim it down and it'll look great. So this is where having a ruler the exact same size as your foundation kind of is convenient. And if you have a rotating mat, it's even better. So I just flipped it to the back side. And we're just going to trim down the excess pieces here. Whoops. And because this is a little bit of a smaller rotating mat, you have to kind of reposition it here, but not a problem.
Donna Dixon says she sometimes uses crumb blocks for backing.
Oh, that's a good way to actually just use it up.
Yeah, it is. You know, one of the quilts that I used to have for my grandmother, she had crumb scraps on the back of a quilt that I don't have anymore.
There you got your string block all beautifully done. Now with these cutoff pieces, a lot of times if the piece is big enough, again, if it's longer or bigger than a 1-inch square, I will actually pull it apart, throw these pieces and reuse them and make a crumb block out of it.
Judy says, let me say, my scraps, crumbs, and strings dash never gets smaller. I make more scraps as I go along.
Yeah, somehow they have babies. Okay. So here is what I'm saying. This is basically just another piece of fabric that you can kind of slice and dice however you want to. Now, before I start doing that, I am going to give this a really good press because this is kind of a little bit wavy. So let me flatten this out.
Kelly says she has several string blocks done pretty much exactly like the one Eric just made. The blocks will be a quilt eventually.
Yep.
Yes, that's Eric you hear, Mona.
Hello, Mona.
He's going to teach us how to make a churn dash with string.
Okay. So at this point, since I am going to start using this particular block into an actual and create a quilt block out of it, I am going to then remove the paper. One thing I forgot to mention before I started this is the stitch length.
Okay.
You want to go with a smaller stitch length just so that it can perforate. If you are using a paper foundation, you want to go with the smaller stitch length so that it'll perforate the paper a lot easier. And when you tear it away, it's not going to be so fussy.
Mm-hmm. Now, if you're using fusible, you can leave that on, right?
You could leave it whatever stitch length on you want.
Okay.
You normally sew at, and you can leave it in there. Same thing with the dryer sheet. I don't remove that. In fact, it's kind of difficult to actually try and remove a dryer sheet if you're using that as your foundation.
Okay. Kelly says she uses newspaper too. And Joe says it's relaxing working with scraps. You can sit and do this all day long.
Yep. So at this point, I got just a 6.5-inch square. Now, again, just treat it like it's any other fabric that you normally would cut and make your quilting pieces out of. So for the churn dash, I'm going to need some, let's see, half square triangles, in which I'm going to pair it with this lavender square here. Now, this square is 5 inches. Of course, this is, again, 6.5 inches. You can, how do I say this? You can go ahead and trim it down. I usually don't. In fact, here's what I do. I will just use my little pen here and like normal two at a time half square triangles. I'm going to mark my diagonal. Whoops. I'm just going to line it up or line up one corner of it. And I'm just going to sew 1/4 inch on both sides of that diagonal line. I'm not going to bother trimming this down yet because, well, in the end, when I get my 2 half square triangles, that's when I'm going to square it up. So all of this is going to come off at that point anyway. So I usually don't take the time to trim it down or cut the squares down. At this point, I just wait until I just wait until I need to square out the half square triangle units to do that.
Eric, I'll be right back.
Okay.
I have to go bio break.
Right, so there I sewed 1/4 inch away from that diagonal line on both sides. And again, just like normal half square triangles, I'm just gonna cut it right there in half. Did I get all of it? Yeah. Okay. And I'm gonna finger press this back for now. Actually, let me hit it with an iron. Pressing tip. If you are gonna press your fabrics to one side, press towards whatever your background is or your solid reading fabric, because you don't want to be pressing with all of this bulk here, and or you'll be fighting your fabrics there. So I tend to press, if I am going to press it to one side, I tend to press it to the solid piece of fabric and not to the string pieces here. Other one.
This is inspiring me to want to make some blocks.
So where's everybody from? I don't think we've asked that question before.
So Eric wants to know where everybody lives or where you're from. So can you post that in the chat, please?
Okay. So
someone mentioned that they use kids coloring books too for doing those blocks.
Yeah. I've heard people using like the old telephone books, even though we don't get
someone
those
mentioned that also. Yep. Do they even make telephone books anymore?
Some counties do. It's a rarity these days.
I was going to say, I don't know if you can find a phone booth. Can you? I haven't really paid attention.
Nope, hardly anymore.
Donna's from Alabama. Diane's from Missouri. Nancy's Western Kentucky. Pat's Delaware. Cindy's Florida. Kathy's Illinois. Luane is Dallas and lives in San Francisco. Lori says Forest, Virginia. Andrea says Missouri, live in Texas. Kelly says British Columbia, about 100 kilometers east of Vancouver. Cherry says North Carolina. Oh, speaking of something, and let me share Eric's channel while I'm thinking about it because I hadn't done it yet. If you are not subscribed to his channel, mosey on over there and help his channel grow too, and subscribe. Share the love. Diane says that their phone books are thin and are about a 7 by 9 inch.
Oh, small.
That is small. We don't even have a phone book anymore here. When I first moved here, there was a phone book that was maybe a 1/4 of an inch thick because there's only 3,500 people living here. But now they don't now you don't even get one in the mailbox anymore. Joyce says Central Alabama. That block is going to be super cute. So which way are you planning to do this? Are you going to use the string for the churn dash style, or are you going to use the solid for the churn dash?
I think I'm going to use a solid on this one.
Okay.
So you saw how funky my square was, but when you trim it down, look how pretty it becomes.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Okay, so I need to just going to grab another one. Rip off the paper on this.
And Deb S says she's from Iowa, or she lives in Iowa. I don't know which. Did you get knocked off again? Andrea says, I first met Eric when he was visiting Tiffany and they were doing a jelly roll race. She subbed at that time and watched his tutorials on replay. For some reason, she's never caught his live. His live is usually on Tuesdays, isn't it? Uh-oh. We lost Eric. Hang on a minute. He's working on it because we can't hear him again.
Sorry.
It's all right.
Sure my phone keeps disconnecting, but at least this time I caught it.
I have to plug mine into a power source or it will just do that kind of thing. Andrea says she first met you when you were visiting Tiffany and you were doing a jelly roll race. She subbed at that time and watched your tutorials on the replay, and for some reason she's never caught a live. But your lives are on Tuesday afternoon, right?
Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific time.
Yep, because I always catch it at 2. Let's see. Yeah. It's always 2 o'clock in the morning when I'm still awake. I catch you. Because I'm still awake. I'm like, oh, wait, he's live. Let me go hop on there. Now I can talk to someone. It's interesting. I don't really see that many people earlier in the day that's from this side of the pond on any of the quilt lives, hardly ever. There's one person I think from Denmark that I see from time to time, and another one from Sweden, and then of course Zaza lives in Scotland, and outside of that, there's the only 3 I actually think I know of that are on this side of the pond.
I'm kind of wondering if internet connection is an issue.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering too, why we don't see more people from this side. I know that I'm the only one here in Greenland because, there's no quilters here that I know about or that I'm not aware of currently. Put it that way. But they do sew and stuff. It's just they sew other things.
I met a quilter on Zoom. She lives in France, actually. And I asked her the question, are there a lot of quilters out in France? In which she says no, but there's a lot of people that do sew.
Yeah, they make clothes. Yeah.
And it makes sense because, when you think of France, it's like a fashion capital. So, of course, everybody's going to be heading in that direction. But she, as far as she knows, she's the only quilter around in her area. And what also surprised me was the price of fabric that she has to pay. It's ridiculous. Like we complain about paying $15, maybe $20 a yard. She's paying double that because she has to ship it from the US.
Yep, all of my fabric comes from the United States. In Denmark, there is all kinds of fabric sewing stores, but most of what you see in there is the cotton selection is very small. It's mostly fabric for making clothes or doing upholstery and stuff. That's type of fabric.
You know, you can still use that type of fabric to make a quilt. I mean, I've seen people do that. I've actually seen people use non-fabric material to make a quilt as well. Case in point, at one of the quilt shows in California called Road to California, they had a category, they had a challenge actually, in which they challenged quilters to make a quilt, but not out of fabric. So they had to kind of figure out what type of material they wanted to use that could actually make a quilt. And one quilter, believe it or not, she used you know, the shelf liner that you put like on your kitchen.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yep.
She made a whole quilt out of that. Another person actually went to a fast food store or a fast food chain, a very well-known fast food chain. She grabbed all the napkins that she could get, and that's what she made her quilt out of.
What size blocks what size are you using for your solid?
I am squaring these down to 4.5.
So the solid, what you used to turn the, oh my gosh, the lavender, what size was those squares?
So these are 5-inch squares. So I keep a stash of 5-inch and 2.5-inch squares. And I do find that a 5-inch square, I mean, to make a half square triangle at 4.5 is it's a convenient size to do. So that's why I typically will cut 5-inch squares and just have that on hand.
Okay. Colleen, I'm Greenlandic time, so I'm 3 hours ahead of Eastern Standard Time. I'm going to cut a piece of, while you're doing that, I'm going to cut some solid so I can use on my string block so I can follow along too.
Oops.
Just got to decide on what color.
Now I will square this one up. Pretty darn close there. Okay. Oh, and get that corner. Wait, get that corner. I will lay this out a little bit now that I got my 4 half square triangles. For the corner pieces, where did I... I'm going to use that as my center. So move that away for a second. And trim this down to 4.5 as well.
Yeah, Kevin, welcome to the chat live tonight. Haley says, so Katie, it's 8 p.m. For you. Yes, it is. It's 10 after 8. And Eric, you are on Mountain Time. Me and Eric are 6 hours apart. No, 5. You're on Mountain Time, right?
No, Pacific.
Then you're 6, yeah. Eric is 6 hours behind me. Gotta iron this before I cut a piece off of it.
Okay, so again, if I'm not going to use the string right away, I usually leave the paper in there, but as soon as I start using those blocks, I will tear that paper away. So I'm going to use this blue color as my center. And now I just need to make my rectangle pieces there, and then we can put this whole thing together.
Okay, cool.
Now, I don't know who else actually does this, but let me see, what piece am I going to use? Let's use this, and maybe that one. Oh,
Kelly says, right. So me and Eric are in the same time zone, and LaWayne too. Yes.
yep.
Pauline says she's 1 hour ahead of Eastern. Where do you? Oh, she's in Newfoundland. Ah, they're 1 hour ahead of Eastern. So that means she's 2 hours behind me in Newfoundland.
Yep. You know, you don't actually realize that Canada stretches a little bit further out on the East Coast.
Yep. And the other thing is we're so close to Canada. It's crazy if you look at the map.
Yeah, I was watching a video the other day about the anomalies, and when you look at a map, you always see the world as flat, but you never realize that it's round in shape. So a lot of people tend to think that South America is directly under or directly south of North America, but in actuality, it is south, but it's also a little bit further east than what people normally think it is.
Yep. Did you know that the other thing is, have you noticed how some countries are really huge on a map when technically they're really not as big as it looks like they are on the map?
Yeah.
That,
Yeah.
What I read, the reason they look big is this: most of those that look that size is because they're Christian countries. I didn't know that. That was interesting information.
Okay, so for this one, I am going to trim this down to a 4-inch block so I can have an easier time sewing this together. And what I'm basically going to do is I got two, so I trimmed my string block to a 5-inch square. I got a 5-inch square here, putting it right sides together. I'm just going to sew 1/4 inch right down on the left side and the right side there. Okay, so again, I just sewed a 1/4 inch on the left and the right, and I'm just gonna cut it right down the middle. So at 2.5, since this is a 5-inch square, 2.5 is the center. And just finger pressing this back. I'm gonna lay this on top of each other.
So what did you
Now,
decide the size of the rectangle?
I'm sorry.
What are the size of the rectangles?
So I started off with a 5-inch
Okay.
square, sewed 1/4 inch, put it right sides together with the string that is also 5-inch square. Sewed a 1/4 inch on the left and the right. Now, this is the original 5 inches still, but the height now becomes 4.5, which will match my half square triangles. So at this point, then just to save a couple of steps, that's why I decided to just sew the 1/4 inch on the sides there. Then at this point, I just trim this down to 4.5 inches. If I can cut through that. And here I already have printing half of the block kind of done.
Okay.
And I need to make another 2 more bars on the side there. So we'll clear this off for a second.
For those of you who don't know who Tuber Chat is, his name is Kevin, and he has a channel that he posts small channels like us who are small, and he helps he has discussions on what you can do to help your channel grow better, but he also helps get your channel out in the YouTube world to other people who might not know about you. So that's who Kevin is, and I've been visiting that chat for a while now, and it's a good place to learn things you didn't know about if you don't have the time to go and do YouTube University. You know what I mean?
Mm. Let me tell you, starting a YouTube channel for me was a huge learning curve because I had no idea how to edit videos, how to even make videos.
I know, right? It's crazy
And
all the stuff that's involved.
yeah, most people just think, oh, just take your cell phone and start recording yourself. Yeah, there's a little bit more to it than that.
Yep, definitely.
So I can definitely certainly appreciate even, um, appreciate anybody who makes an effort to start a YouTube channel because it's not easy and it is almost like a second job.
Yep. I'm not sure which I spend more time doing, editing or if it's trying to navigate YouTube to get things loaded up properly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think pre-records take a while to edit unless you have a really good, like when I do my podcast interviews, those go pretty smooth as long as I don't add all of my 2 cents worth in on a conversation. You understand what I mean by that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Then I have to go back and edit all that out. But I've gotten better at it where I'm not doing that, adding something that I might think should go in it. Then later when I listen to it, I'm like, that doesn't need to even be in there. So did you sew a 1/4 inch line on each
Oh,
side of that
wait a
center
minute.
line, right?
To make the half square triangle, yeah.
Okay, all right, just making sure I caught that properly.
I don't know why I marked that line because I'm not making half square triangles with this. I'm doing the bars. So again, just sewing a 1/4 inch on the left and the right side there.
Mona said she started with a cell phone and learned as she went. I have zero patience for using my cell phone. I can make videos with the cell phone like shorts and stuff, but when it comes to editing and uploading to YouTube, I have zero patience for it. So that's why I depend on my laptop.
Yeah, I do know some creators that only use cell phones and which they do all their editing and everything on that cell phone. And
Yeah,
somehow I just don't know how in the world they're able to do that.
I don't either because I can't see good enough to do that.
Nope, not me. Okay, so whoops, sorry about that.
Yep, there went
Me
your
drawing
camera.
that diagonal line was a mistake, so you can ignore that. And again, on blocks like this, I tend to press the fabric over towards the one piece rather than trying to press it against the strings. I'm just going to line this up. Whoops, no, that's not very good. There we go, that's better. And trim it down to 4.5. And I think we have all our pieces now, so let's lay this out.
Kelly says that Mona did what that is how she got going too, was on her phone, and it's just evolved over time. Her laptop is pretty good for editing and has a decent program. Yeah, I find it easier with the laptop than I do a computer. That's for sure. I mean a phone, sorry.
Okay, there we have our block.
Oh, look at that. It's beautiful.
Okay, now here's the beauty of this too. If I decided I don't want to use this lavender as part of to make the turn dash, all you got to do, turn it around
And switch it to the crumb.
and switch it to the crumbs or the strings or whatever you're using. Now, if you do that, just be aware of what the center is going to do, because notice you've got strings and string here, in which you might lose the turn dash look of it. But
Yeah.
if this is
But
what
you
you
can always
want,
put a solid in the middle.
yep. So I can swap this out and put that. Whoops, this one goes like that.
Looks great.
Okay,
I would have
so
never thought of doing it like that.
play around with it. If you don't like it one way, just turn it around and see if you like it the other way. Um, now, one thing I do want to say about this, and this I had to learn the hard way, is that whatever I chose to use this lavender print fabric. Now, there is a print that's on there, but it's kind of solid reading.
Mm-hmm.
What you don't want to do is you don't want to use a fabric like this as your background or pair it with the string, because this is a very, very busy print as it is.
Yep.
If you pair it against that string, it's just chaos on top of chaos. And if that's what you like, then by all means, you can go ahead and do that. But for me, when I have a block like this, I need a place where my eye can kind of rest, because within each of these strings, there's a lot of color, there's a lot of fabrics that are trying to vie for your attention, but you need a place where your eye can rest. And that's where having one solid or solid reading fabric kind of balances everything out. So again, that's personal preference, but before you start actually sewing all of your pieces with the string blocks, you just want to kind of put it together like that and say, does that work for me, or is that like really in my face, a little too busy? So just be aware of that.
That makes good sense.
Okay. Then at this point, we can just sew our rows together, or sew our pieces into rows and sew the rows together.
And you said you cut down the half square triangles to 4.5, right?
Right.
Okay, gotcha. Don't forget, I'll post Eric's link again. If you've not been to Eric's, if you're not subscribed to Eric's channel, let me share the link. Go over there and share some love with him. Ooh, that's not even in the chat right this minute. Oops. Yeah, go over and visit his channel and subscribe and make sure you watch a few of his videos and like and comment and give him some watch hours because I know he would appreciate that.
I most certainly would.
And on Tuesdays, he's live at 7, you said, East Pacific, right?
Right.
Okay. Can you also just trim, Eric, instead of leaving this on and then trim it down, can you just go ahead and trim this off if you wanted to, if you're angle challenged?
Trim what down?
The extra string part.
I suppose you could. You mean cut this to that piece and then sew it on?
No, cut it off and then trim down.
Yeah, you could do that. I mean, if there's no rule, I just kind of did it the way I did, just to kind of skip a couple of steps. But if you're more comfortable with just actually trimming it down and then sewing it together, that's perfectly fine.
Okay. Because knowing me, I might accidentally make a big boo-boo.
That one's off. Okay, then I'm going to sew this one onto there. Flip over. Now, normally I would have some kind of leader and ender project where I would sew, instead of sewing on this little piece of scrap fabric there, I would maybe sew 2 squares together, or just sew a piece of crumb together. But for the sake of time on this live, I didn't. Well, I have these squares here. I don't know why I just didn't pick those up. But yeah, normally I would just take like 2 of these squares, sew it. When I'm done sewing my regular block, I will just grab these 2 squares, sew that through, and just chain piece that.
It's going to be a special block.
Okay, so for this, let's see, how do I want to press the seams? So in the middle, I'm going to press the seam allowances out. And for this top piece, I'm going to have it alternate and go inward. And just so that I can nest the seams when I sew these rows together. And I can kind of feel that this string piece here is kind of fighting me, but at this point, I'm going to make it submit and do the same thing with the bottom. Now, alternatively, at this point, when I start sewing or putting the block together, I could decide and just press my seams open. I'm not going to do that here though, but that is an option if you prefer to do it that way. Okay, so I can sew this one and I'll make the seams go alternating. You can pin it if you want to. I'm just going to sew this together.
I think someone, Colleen says, I have to say goodbye. My cat needs attention. I'm looking forward to seeing Eric's next Farmer's Wife block. Yeah, me too. Those blocks were coming out beautiful, Eric.
Well, thank you. Bye, Colleen.
I think when I go to the United States the next time, I'm going to order the book itself and then go to Office Max or somewhere and have the spiral put on it.
Oh gosh, putting that spiral on that book made it so much easier to just have the book lay flat, and yeah, that was a lifesaver.
Yeah, when you showed that, I wouldn't have thought of that. And I have quite a few, you know, paperback quilt books that would be perfect for that kind of thing, but we don't have a that kind of store here in this tiny town. And I'm not sure that I don't even know if Nuke has something like that where you could just send it to them and have it done. Joe says she has subscribed to your channel, Eric.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Wayne says, be careful if you use directional fabric. I guess that would depend on where you're using the directional at.
Okay, let me press this and then we have a block.
This would definitely make a great pinwheel. I don't know why I find pinwheels so fascinating.
There we go.
That's gorgeous. Look at that. Kelly says she's going to head out too. I will see you briefly on Monday morning on John's live. Yeah, it'll be in the afternoon, my time.
Okay. So one thing you can experiment with, if you is the center here. If you got like a nice print fabric that you want to feature, you can fussy cut that print and put it right there in the center. That's what a lot of quilters tend to do. But otherwise, just put another string block in there, or if you got it inverted, put a solid fabric in there. You're good to go.
Okay, that's wonderful. It's beautiful. Sean says hello, or he says good day.
Hello, Sean.
Luane says in the half square triangle, make sure they are going the same way in the background fabric. Okay, gotcha. All right. So now you can see his churn dash blocks. That's how you make it. So how many of you are inspired to take some of your string blocks and turn it into a churn dash? I definitely am going to do that. And then I'll share it with you guys next week when me and Eric get together. Do you want to make a different block too while we're still live? Eric? Because we're about we're an hour and a half in now.
Okay. Do people want to see a different block?
Wait. Yeah, would you like Eric to make a different block so you can see how he did it? I'd like to see you do that star. Is that would that take too long?
This star?
Yeah. I'd like to see you do that one.
Okay. Let's see, what kind of pieces do I need for this? Okay. So again, if you don't want to do a churn dash, you can do any other kind of block or traditional block that you can think of. So here's the star.
They're all saying things.
You know, just again, I'm just using strings, and then if you know how to make a sawtooth star, it's basically the same process. It's just that one of your fabrics are going to be these string pieces here. So let's go ahead and make the star.
Some are saying yes, and someone says go for it, and Joyce says yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
And and then next week I'll have a couple blocks for y'all to make. And I'll send you the information if you want to make it ahead of time, Eric.
Okay.
I didn't know what the plan was for today, so I've kind of just been winging it.
Oh,
you have lots and lots of little strings, don't you? Look at that.
So these are all just crumb pieces that were small little fabric pieces that I sewed together here.
What size are
And
those?
these are 4.5.
Okay.
So with crumb squares like this, I keep it fairly small because I don't want to be sewing little pieces of fabric for days on end. I know people do make like a whole 12.5-inch block out of or square out of these, but I don't. So I just tend to keep these small. And typically with a square like this, I will use it as part of the center, or I might just make a half square triangle out of it. So 4.5, 6.5. I mean, those lend themselves really, or those sizes lend themselves really well to make a 12.5-inch unfinished block like this. Let's see. I'm going to use the purple again. And then, where did it? Oh, I should definitely show you this as well. Okay. This is a string square, but notice that half of it is all the same fabric. The other half is all the print fabrics or different print fabrics in which it gives you the illusion of a half square triangle. So this is something that you can also do. Then of course, with half square triangles, you can kind of put them together and then do whatever half square triangle design you want to. Yeah, I got 4 of them. So let's try and make a pinwheel. Nope. Like that. That. And then we got this one going like that. So kind of gives you a pinwheel effect there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's make the star. And I will just choose random ones.
Channel did I miss in here?
Let's see. So my center, I believe, was 6.5. No, 3, 6, 9, 12. So 3.5. Yep, it was a 6.5. So I can use one of these as my center.
Yes, you did, Sean. Sean says, I finally made it to your live. He has. Thank you for coming tonight. Yeah, because I'm like, he never comes to my lives because he's always so big. That's because he's got 2 young people. I know one's from Denmark. Where did you say the other one was from? He's got 2 girls that go around for the international oh, I forget what that's called. It's where students come from other countries to go to school in the America, and they
Oh,
stay.
exchange?
What did you call it?
Exchange?
Yeah, student exchange. That's it. I was trying to think of it. They have the same thing here. They have student exchange here, and I think a couple Greenlanders go to the United States as well. And the other young lady is from Germany, so he has German and Danish. Make sure the channels, if you are not a member of the channels I've been posting in here, mosey on over there and share your love and subscribe to their channels. How many years have you been doing the student exchange, Sean? Can't remember if he told me how long or not. When you use interfacing as for the strings, and then you because this is the question I was going to ask you earlier, because somebody might ask. I'm asking because I want to know. And you're going to use half square triangles by using a solid as the background to go with the strings. Is that going to create a difference of thickness because you're not having interfacing on the back of the plain part of the block?
I've never noticed that. I guess it depends on the type of interfacing that you are using.
It's super light. It's very thin.
Yeah, if you're using more of a thinner or lightweight, then I don't think it makes any much of a difference. But if you're using something that's a little bit thicker, it could possibly create some problems, especially if you're trying to, or if you're making like a certain size and get it exactly the correct size.
Okay. I was wondering, I thought of that when I cut the teak for the solid color, you know, to make the churn dash with. And I'm like, okay, so I have the stiff, it's not stiff, but you can tell that it has a little help to keep that bias from stretching. And I wondered if it would create a problem for the other side with where there's no interfacing.
Yeah, I don't believe so.
Luane says, Katy, listen to this, Eric. Katie's, Luane says, Katy, I looked into a trip to Greenland. Getting there is easy. Getting back, oh my God, 12 hours layover in Frankfurt. Okay, let me update you guys. You do not have to go. If you wait to come to Greenland next year in the summer, they will be flights between Newark, New Jersey and Nuuk 2 times a week through United Airlines.
Ooh.
That starts in June. Or is it April? It's either April or June. I'll get the exact date and I'll get the information and I'll post it on the community tab and in the quilting group so you guys know. To anyone who wants to make a trip, if you wait till then, you will not have to deal with what he's talking about, a 10-hour. Yeah, because 10-hour layover is crazy, for one thing. And number two, I would never get stuck in Paris. No. But anyway, yeah, it's 11 hours when you fly from the Pacific to Denmark. Especially if you have to go through the UK and then to Denmark, or through Amsterdam and then to Copenhagen. But if you wait till June, you can travel to, they'll have 2 flights a week with United Airways or Airlines from Newark to Nuuk. And then it's just a matter where you want to go in Greenland after that. And you'll have to, it depends on where you want to go. If you want to stay in Nuuk and do your sightseeing there, then you don't have to book another flight with Great Green or Air Greenland. If you want to go to Ilulissat, I'm not sure when the runway is supposed to be finished in Ilulissat. I'll look into that. There is flights going to go because the runway is going to be long enough. So they may end up with flights going from the United States to Ilulissat too. I just haven't heard any updates on that one yet. Otherwise, you just would have to go from Nuuk to Ilulissat on a short dash or on a dash 8. And the flight's, I think, 45 minutes or something. It's very short. Andrea says, do they have places to stay near you, or are you opening a B&B, Katy? There is Airbnbs here. Hey, Kathleen, welcome. So you're about to start the star part, right?
Yeah. So
okay, I'll shut up when you're ready.
To swap out, instead of using that lavender color, I'm going to use this hot pink.
Ooh, look at that hot pink. Or is that red?
It is pink, although the camera is kind of picking up more reddish.
The camera's making it look like a hot pink. Katy, can Katy can be your Greenlandic travel agent and tour guide. Yeah, I'm a tour guide here in my town. Greenland Quilter Tours. That's cool. There's plenty to do all over Greenland. I mean, it depends on what you want to do. If you are athletic or you're a hiker, then you could do things like the Extreme Arctic Hike Adventure. It's called the Extreme Arctic Adventure. You could do that. That means you would be hiking across the ice cap itself. And that's further north. I think that happens either in Nuuk or Ilulissat where that goes on. Down here, you can do ice cap safari, iceberg safari, hot spring safari. You can get in a helicopter and land on top of the ice cap. There's also all of the Norse ruins to go to. There's all kinds of things you can do down here too. How you doing, Kathleen? Yes, that's Eric you're hearing.
Hello.
We are doing a scrappy sew together. Only I'm not sewing at the moment, which is kind of weird. I need to finish making the other parts of this turn dash. You said I needed. Can you do no, you can't because then it wouldn't look like a turn dash. Never mind. This needs to go this way.
So this has to then be. So I took my 6.5-inch square. I'm going to cut it in half to 3 1/4.
Okay.
3 1/4 by 6.5 still. And these I'm going to turn into my star legs, in which then I'm going to pair it with this hot pink. And I believe this was 3.5. I think so.
Katie, how did the you didn't. Luane hasn't seen you haven't seen it, Luane? Oh my gosh, I need to go get it. But I'll have to wait until Eric's done his tutorial here.
No, go ahead because this is going to take me a little while.
Okay, let me go get the quilt top. I don't think it's in here actually. Because I think I left it in the bedroom. Yeah, I'll be right back, you guys. I'm gonna go get the quilt top from where I tested Andrea's pattern.
Okay, so I'm making 3.5-inch squares. I'm going to pair it with the rectangle, and we're going to do some flying geese units. So and this is not my favorite technique of making a flying geese, but it's going to work for this real nicely. Let's see. Sean is asking, do you need a visa for Greenland, or do they have a BWP visa waiver program for ETA? Ooh, good question.
Okay, while you're cutting the blocks, I'm going to take the spotlight off for just a minute so Luane can see this quilt top. Is that okay with you, Eric?
Sure. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. You ready to see this, Luane? Because here it comes. As soon as I get things out of the way. I'm just going to show you in halves because the thing I was standing on to show last time is not in here where I can stand on it.
Wow.
So this is the top half of it, and then I'll fold it over so you can see the bottom half of it. Because I have low ceilings, as you can see. And I'm not a very tall person.
And what pattern is this?
It's called Modern Tumbling Blocks. It's by Andrea of Modern Mama J Enterprises. And your camera just went out.
Oh.
And I was her pattern tester. And I used all batiks in it.
That is gorgeous. Love the color.
I'm going to send it to my friend Christine and let her quilt it because she quilted my we've already talked about it. She did the quilting on my 2023 Stronger Together one that has mountain blocks that are kind of like the same style of sewing with strips with it. And she's going, what I'm going to do, have her do, you see how I have different colors? She's going to try to match the threads to all the different colors. And she's going to quilt using the same color thread as whatever the block is, or as close to the block as she can get it. And get creative within each of these three-dimensional spots. Sean, yeah, there is a short with this in it also. If you go to my main page, and I'll also share Andrea's page because she did make a video with the pattern because now the pattern's gone live on her Etsy shop. And anyway, on my Greenland Quilter page in YouTube, if you go to my shorts, you'll find a short with this in it. And it's got Elton John Crocodile Rock music to it. But also you can go to Mama J Enterprises and she has made a video about the modern tumbling block as well. And I'm going to be testing another one of her blocks. She sent me 3 different new patterns she needs testing, and I've picked one of them. So you'll have to stay tuned to find out which one I picked. All right, I'm going to put Eric back on the spotlight and go back to talking to everybody in the chat because people made comments. Carissa says, slap out it or looks really good, Katie. Very colorful. All right. Oh, sorry, my bad. Not Etsy for Andrea. It's her own website. Okay, let me share. Oh, she already did it. Never mind. Andrea shared her website link or her YouTube link, and there is a video about the tumbling blocks along with my quilt top in it because we finally got a good picture of it. The only thing I haven't done to the quilt top yet is I am going to put a border around it, and then it'll be ready to send to Georgia for quilting. Thank you. Will you turn that fan on because it's kind of, yeah. All right, let me back. Go ahead.
Katie, if you scroll up, Sean had a very interesting question about the need for having a visa to visit Greenland.
With the United States, no. For an American to come over here, you do not need a visa. You don't need a visa to get into Denmark either, or the UK, as far as I know, unless something changed. Because I've never had to have a visa to travel back and forth. Now, if a Greenlander wants to go to the United States of America for a visit, they have to have a visa.
That's interesting.
And they can only stay 90 days and then they have to leave. Now, I'm not sure how my boss, my boss's husband is an ambassador of Greenland. And right now, with the current administration, they did an ambassador swap. So he's in Washington, D.C., and they live in Maryland. And so when her season ends, she goes and stays with him. And so I don't know how their situation, since he's a Greenlandic government person, I don't know how they handle those types of people. But for like Nico, he has to have a visa to go to the United States.
Oh, interesting.
But any American that wants to come to Greenland doesn't need one. Or Denmark. You just have to have an updated passport.
Not sure what happened here, but I kind of came up short.
Uh-oh.
And there's a hole right there at the tip. But you know what? That's going to get caught in the seam allowance. I don't care if the point matches at this point. So I'm just going to leave it as is. We'll see how
Kathleen
it
says
turns.
she loves the quilt top. Looking forward to the pattern coming available. It's already available, you guys. Lorraine says, oh, wow, that, oh, my, wow is right. So beautiful, Joe says. Campbell's Creation says, that's beautiful. Hey, Campbell's Creation, I sent you an email. Can you check into that for me, please? Nancy says, that's gorgeous. And then, of course, Sean mentioned about my short. Pat says, I bought the pattern now to figure out when to work on it. Might wait until next year. Oh, she got the pattern. That's awesome. And what else did I miss? Sean? This one right here. Okay, I think I got everybody. So y'all keep watching Eric because he's making the star.
So this is not my favorite technique of making flying geese units because something like this hole right there kind of happens a lot for me. But you know what? We just have fun with it anyway. So
Flying geese are such a pain to me.
they are.
I've
They
gotten
truly
if
are.
I'm going to make flying geese, I cut the you know the triangle or the when you do the stitch and flip, I cut it a little bit bigger and then trim down. That way I don't have that big massive mess up there at that point.
Yeah. But this is the most convenient way for me to do it for this particular moment. So I'll just do it like this.
Yep. So I'm going to ask you to repeat yourself again, and this time I'm going to write it down. What size does the center of the turn dash need to be?
All of the squares, let's see, where did I put it?
Hi, Patty.
So,
Welcome, welcome.
so if you want to make a 12.5-inch unfinished, that it's divided into 3 segments per row. So that means for this to be 12.5, each one of these units or squares have to be unfinished 4.5.
Unfinished 4.5. Okay. And that's for all 3 rows, all 3 sections, right?
Right.
Okay, gotcha.
Now again, you can make this any size you want to. I just choose to do a 12.5-inch unfinished, but you could do a 9-inch. You could do maybe even if you want to go that small, 6 inches. So the size of the block is really just your choice.
Okay.
I just choose to do a 12.5.
Kathleen says, did I miss it? Oh, the pattern. Hang on. No, I can post it again. The pattern link. Did I miss it? Laugh out loud. There's a link for the pattern. Hang on. Oh my gosh, I don't think I have that in my. I don't have her pattern link in them. Andrea, where do I get the link for the website itself? Can they get that from? Well, actually, this is what you need to do, Kathleen. Go to Mama J's YouTube channel, and then you should be able to find the link to where the patterns are at. Eric, do you make string postcards?
I have not.
Let me go
That is
see if I can
something I would
find the
love
link
to
to
learn how
her
to do.
website. Yeah. So far, I've only gotten 2 postcards in the last year that someone made. Oh, while he's working on that, yeah, we'll have to share that later too. Let me click on her website. Let's see if I can find the link for the pattern. Should be in the description box underneath her video. Yep, here we go. I found the pattern. All right. Now I can share it with you guys in chat. Here is the web page for where you can buy the pattern for the modern tumbling blocks. And I need to put that in the bot.
And grab this, and we will sew these 2 squares together. So that I can make 4 patch out of this.
Okay, let's see if I can get this thing to work.
You know, a lot of times when I quilt like this, or when I'm sewing like this, I just tend to throw stamps stuff all over the place just to get it out of my way.
Mm-hmm. It with me working in the living room, this tiny spot that we set up the sewing area because I'm still not back in the sewing room yet. It's the same problem. I'm so crowded in here. It's like this desk is just not big enough.
Interesting thing is though, if I put stuff back in its proper place, I can never re-find it.
Yeah, I know what you mean. When I've been going in and out of the sewing room a little bit more, trying to clean up more of the. Every time I move something, I find more glass, and so I've been dealing with that. And the other day, I got to looking at it, and I was gonna put all, since we don't have a window on that wall anymore, I was gonna move all my shelves on there, but then I decided I'm gonna put the shelves on the wall that my design board is on, and move the design board to where the window used to be. That way, when I'm sitting down at my sewing machine, I can actually look at the design board from across the room instead of the design board being behind me. Kathleen, I'm not making that much progress. It's taking time. I can only tolerate about being in there for about an hour, and then I have to get out of there. Especially when I find glass all over the front of my clothes. Just because I brushed against something. But I was shaking glass out of my batiks. I had a bunch of, I finally found my when right before the accident happened, I was going to do a tutorial on how to make the friendship starter. Y'all remember that? And I had already started making the blocks, and we were going to do a sew along together. And then that happened, and that got put on the back burner. I found most of what was going to be making the makeup for it. The only thing's missing is the small square blocks that were going to go in the middle of the friendship star. All of that's missing. So I'm going to have to figure out. I don't even know if I still have all the fabric, because some of that might have got sucked out the window when all that stuff got sucked out. So I got to figure out what to do about it.
Oh boy.
Yep. What easy, girlfriend? You've been quiet till now. Where's your ball? Go find your ball.
Oh, has she been here the whole time?
Yeah. She hasn't yapped once, has she? And she's over here bothering me. Oh, here's your ball. Get your ball. Get your ball. No, she wants me to feed her is what she wants. Want to say hi to everybody? Come here. You are so big. Say hello.
Aww.
You see that tail? That tail is always going. You know she's happy when that tail's going. Oh, be careful or you're gonna fall out of my lap. Don't get up there like that. That hurts. Oh, you're such a trip. All right, go find Daddy. Go find Daddy. Oh, he did. He made me bleed. I knew that was going to happen. You cut me, girlfriend. So I don't like to pick you up like that. I think when I get back into the sewing room, we have a small little chair. It's like a living room chair, but it's a small one. I think I'm gonna put it in my sewing room so she can hang out on the chair.
Oh, that'll be a good idea.
And then if anyone wants to see her, I can just point the camera that way, you know? But we're picking up the puppy in January. And then things are going to be crazy around here for a while, I think. Okay, see you later, Andrea. Katy, any progress is progressing. I'm proud of you regardless how much you think you've achieved, and the fact that you're doing and trying is above the rest. Thanks, Kathleen. I appreciate that.
That's how I feel with my whole move. I still haven't unpacked a whole ton of boxes yet.
You probably feel overwhelmed, I bet. I know moving just makes you feel like that, and you're like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah. I mean, some of the stuff I don't even have to unpack. I'm just going to keep it boxed because I don't use it anyway. But I'm afraid I'll forget that I have it in there and then might end up buying it again.
Yep. I have managed to buy, it's hilarious. I like to buy, every time I find books that has to do with Greenland in English, I tend to buy them because it's not often that you find them. So I went in when this summer I went into the museum because I had to take a group of people in there. And lo and behold, they had several books in there in English. One was about the Inuits, another one was about Norsemen, and some other odds and I could have sworn that I didn't have this one plant book. So I bought it. And then when I got home, I already had a copy of it. So now I have two of them. So I think I'm gonna give it away as a giveaway or something to someone who might be interested. Ooh, this is not stopping bleeding. I'm gonna have to put a band-aid on it. Sometimes she catches me with her toenails and I have to go take care of the bunnies. Be back in a bit. That's where Andrea wants to take care of the bunnies.
Oh,
Kathleen says, I'm super excited for your new pupper. Can't wait. Baby girl is going to be a new world of joy. No heartache, just loving on the little one. Yeah, it's going to make, it's going to be interesting because this will be the first time that Nicola's going to experience having two female dogs in the house.
oh boy.
And female dogs are different than males. Males just want to kiss all over you and be a pain in the butt. Females have a pecking order. And we're going to see who ends up top dog before it's over with. They won't. There won't be like this knockdown, drag out fight between them, but there will be. The young one will test Nora, and we'll see if Nora plays alpha or just gives over and lets her be alpha. I don't know. I can tell you that when Coda pushed on Nora, Nora let him know, no, you're not pushing me around. That's pretty.
So we're almost there.
It's totally amazing how you can just take strings and make stars like that. I would have never in a million years thought of that. Just because you made flying geese out of them.
Yep. And now I have the option. Do I want to put a string here in the corner, which might be much? I could just go with another solid. So this is where kind of experimenting and just kind of testing things out, placing different fabrics. You know, this is where it kind of helps out
Yep.
to just play.
Yeah,
So
Nikolai's still at home for another 3 weeks and then he'll be gone.
I think
So
I'm
what are you
gonna
going to do? Are you going to use a solid or are you going to put a string in there and make it colorful?
well, what do you guys think I should do?
Can you turn it the other direction again? No, yeah, the corner. No, you had it a different way. Turn it again. Yeah, like that. I think that would look cool like that, but that's just me.
Okay, Larry says go with the string.
I think you should go with a string
I
too,
think so too. Yeah.
because it'll be like the stars exploding or something, kind of like. Thank you, Kathleen. Yeah, he's home. He'll be home until November the 28th, and then he goes to his mistress. It's his turn to work the holidays and our anniversary, so he'll be gone. But I think I'm going to have a house guest, and the house guest, I'm going to teach her how to sew. She's the young lady that takes care of my house and the dogs when I go to the United States. And I told her she could come over and stay because they live in a really tiny apartment. So anytime she gets to stay at our house when we're gone, she loves it. But she also likes to come over here every now and then and spend the night just to get some space. And I think I'm going to teach her how to sew. I think it's a skill that doesn't hurt to teach young people. And she's 20 years old. I think she's mature enough to learn how to sew. Only thing
Okay.
is she might get the bug and then it'll be like, I can't afford to buy fabric.
Isn't that always the case?
Yeah. Or where do I buy fabric from, Like United States of America? Well, yeah, yep, okay.
Actually, are these big enough? No. So with the cutoff pieces on the flying geese units, I'm just kind of making these half square triangles. I'm just going to throw them in whatever scrap bin, and one of these days it'll become something.
Okay. Oh, the one that came apart?
Yeah. So remember when I was talking about using a triangle to cover up those last, let's see.
Yeah, I remember.
You know, sometimes you get a string and then you get that triangle piece here at the corner.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you can use some of these cut off triangle pieces and just sew that on to fill in the rest of the corner.
You know what? These are already 4.5. Well, a little over 4.5 looks like. How did that happen? No, they're not.
This is 3.
That's wrong. So I want to take this back to an 8.
So what I'm doing here is I'm just kind of sewing these scrap pieces together.
Mm-hmm.
And because I need a 3.5-inch square for the corner,
Yeah.
I'm just going to cut a 3.5-inch square from these pieces here once I get this sewn together. And just be resourceful in using up the leftover pieces that I cut off from the previous blocks.
That's a good idea.
And this will be interesting as to how this will turn out.
Yep.
So I'm just going to cut it randomly here at 3.5. And I'll make another 3.5-inch cut here.
Man, these
So,
were really close to being the right size, like a little over an eighth, and they would have been the right size. Isn't that funny? I wasn't even shooting for them being 4.5 when I cut that 5-inch block, but they're
well,
just a hair over a half, 4.5, and I have to trim that little 1/8 off of there, you know. This one looks like, that's interesting.
oh, I already have another piece on there. So let me just sew this one out. Okay. And I'm choosing to, for this particular piece, because it's 2 string straps coming together, there's a lot of bulk behind here. So I am choosing to press my seam allowance completely open here, just to kind of spread the bulk around.
Can you use a little starch pen to help with that too?
You could.
I discovered that you probably heard, I don't know if you heard me talk about this or not, that I can't starch fabric because of my lungs. And
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah, I can't have that crap getting inside of, because when you're using the spray bottle, there's droplets in the air and you're inhaling that.
right, right.
And I don't need that kind of stuff inside my already damaged lung. And so I've been trying to use like a little pen and just for the seams. And so that gets into your pressing ironing board. The liquid does. And I'm gonna have to change my ironing board cover because every time I iron right now or press, it's stirring up my asthma, which means the stuff that's used to help flatten those seams, there's like remnants of it left on the ironing board cover. And when the iron hits it, it's dissolving into the air. And I'm having a reaction to it. So it's basically causing me to have an asthma attack. So we're back to like, okay, that means I might not be able to even do that.
I didn't realize that it could do that.
Well, if you think about, like when you sneeze, if you don't cover your nose when you sneeze, those droplets go through the air. That's how
Right.
sickness is spread. So if you take a spray bottle like this, one of these, and you spray it, it's sending a mist into the air. And believe it or not, you're inhaling it while it's still sitting in the air. I don't know how long it takes to dissipate in the air, but it's long enough that you have the ability to end up with some of it in your lungs. And I just can't risk, messing up my lungs any worse than they already are, I'm getting to a chest x-ray next week. And they're doing an EKG next week also, because I told when I went to see the doctor Friday, and he tried to brush me off, and because I told him that I felt like I was having more shortness of breath than usual, and that when I lay down, I feel like I'm suffocating. And it could be that my lung capacity is dropping some more. We don't know. And the doctor tried to brush me up, and I said, look, I know my body, and I've been an asthmatic since birth. And when I tell you that it feels like somebody's putting a pillow on my face, I'm literally telling you that's what's going on. It feels like that. And I'm not going to leave here until you agree to do something to check to make, because I told him, I said, something's wrong with me, and I need you to find out what it is. So they're doing blood work, chest x-ray, and EKG just to make sure, to verify, yes, there's something wrong. No, there's nothing wrong. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like there is something wrong. Because the other night when I laid down, I could not catch my breath at all, and I had already taken my medicine. That star is beautiful. Look, you guys. I can't wait
Yep.
for you to sew that together.
Yeah,
I'm
using the
excited.
strings, that was a good call for the
Yes,
corners.
it was. I
Yep.
love it. And that pink really makes it all pop.
Yep.
That's perfect.
Just be careful, because I didn't notice this, that I do have that same fabric is part of the string blocks too. So
Yeah.
just make sure that if something like that doesn't bother you, go for it. But if it does, then you can either turn it around so that it's not so next to each other, or just be aware of what fabrics you do have in there. Notice I do have it here again.
Yeah, I saw that.
It is touching, but you know what? You can still kind of see the star leg,
Yep.
even though those two fabrics are right there. So I'm okay with it.
Okay, so it's 9:30 my time. We've been on for 2.5 hours. Do you want to sew that together, or you want to save it for next week?
Shouldn't take me too long. So let's just, I don't know, are people tired or do we
No,
want to
they're all
continue?
still talking, and it looks to me like they're following along, and I'm fine with that. You know,
Okay,
I'm not
well,
in a hurry
let me just sew it
because
together so you
I'm
can kind
liable
of,
to make it go 3 hours next week since I'm a slow sewer. Yeah,
let me just sew it together
go ahead,
and
because I
we
think
can
that's
put it
gorgeous.
all
All right,
together.
and while you're doing that, I'll read what's being said in the chat. Kathleen says, Eric laughed out loud. I set up my sewing room 4 times after unpacking just to find my comfy zone. Laugh out loud. Let it hassle organically is my unsolicited advice. Laugh out loud, or you might find you end up in a remodel. So basically, let it happen when you're ready.
I think I remodeled 6 times in the past 2 months.
So you still haven't made up your mind yet, then?
No, I'm just trying to get a good vibe for how the flow of this particular room is going to go for me. Because I do have large pieces of things in here.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, it is a larger room that I'm normally used to, but just kind of placing things and having like a good, I guess, flow to the whole room
Mm-hmm.
is what I'm still trying to figure out.
Jackie says she uses a silicone craft sheet on top of her ironing board. Protects the ironing pad. The silicone can be washed off in the sink. Hey, I hadn't thought of that. That's the same kind of silicone you use for when you're doing applique, right?
Never heard of anyone doing that.
Neither. Well, I know. Um, you know when you put the sticky stuff on the back of fabric?
Oh,
And
that's
Jackie's
I don't think that's silicone. That's what do you call that?
there's some kind of mat you use to keep the iron from getting the sticky stuff on it. Jackie says, yes, it is. I
Oh, it
thought
is.
so. I actually have one, a small one. It's not a big one.
This one is here.
Okay. Jackie says, I started teaching my granddaughter when she was 10. It was part of her occupational physical therapies. Sewing, she's talking about. And then Carissa says, just spritz some water. I have bad lungs as well, and that's what I do. That's a good idea, actually. And Carissa says she's listening to both of us while she's sewing.
Okay, so for this particular block, because there is so many string pieces here, I am then choosing to press the seams open. Of course, you can press them to one side if you choose to do so. But I do find that pressing the seams open helps the block to lay a lot better.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a good idea, Eric.
Now, and I always do this. I have one block that's always turned around. So let's make sure that I got that right. There's the center. So this one, yeah, goes like that. Anybody who's watched me on a live knows that I always turn one block around and sew it around backwards. I never catch it until we got the whole entire block sewn together, and then I realized, oh, one of them's not right. Pressing these open. Okay, so then I can start sewing this row together.
I'm going to see how I want to lay out this churn dash with the other two. Uh-oh. Here they are. Oh, I got this turned in the wrong direction. Here, so if those are 4.5, that would be 2.25 for the rectangles, right? That goes between the churn dash triangle part.
Yep, so right in half.
Okay.
Oh, wait, now let me sew this.
What was she doing, honey?
She's been quiet this whole time.
Who, the dog?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's in here following him around. It's like, Daddy's in the kitchen. Maybe I'll get, I think he's about to feed her. Otherwise, she's going to become annoying. But she seems like she's um calmed down quite a bit in the since Nikolai's come home. You know, she's still miss I want to be touched the whole time kind of thing. Do I have these backwards or something? Is this the wrong direction?
No.
Nope, it's to the right one. I see it now. Okay. Since they're on the diagonal, when I cut the top rectangles, I should have diagonals going all in one direction, right?
That's your choice. I've noticed that it doesn't make that huge of a difference.
Okay. I'm gonna pick something here. I could tell you one thing, you never accuse her of never wanting to eat. If she never wants to eat, then there must be something wrong with her, you know? You don't have to coax her into hurrying up and let's go eat, you know? Eric, have you met my husband?
No, I don't believe I did.
Ah, when you're done, when we're done with the block, I'll have him come in and you two can get introduced to each other.
Okay. Well, I mean, I've seen him on a live, but I've never actually talked with him.
He's one of the good guys. I guess it's not going to matter what direction this goes in. But either way, it's still going to go the same direction.
Yep.
Okay, now let's find a different one to use. I'll use this one. So probably another 15 minutes and then check it. Or have you already looked at it? Okay.
Okay. So let's press.
No, you should expect.
Okay, babe. Did you give her the rest of that red meat?
Yep.
Yeah, because if you don't, it's going to spoil. Always have to be careful when you're feeding dogs raw food. It always amazes me how they survive in the wild eating whatever, you know.
Yeah.
But when you do it, if you feed them something spoiled, it automatically will make them sick. Her problem is if you left food on the floor all the time, she would never stop eating. That's how much
Hey.
she likes. That's how much she likes food.
Hey, cleanup crew.
Yep. So you have to make sure that there's anything that falls on the floor that dogs should not have. You better hurry up and get it cleaned up because she will get it. Okay, now all I need is a center block. Too bad I didn't have another crumb block I could have put in the middle. Do this way. Some of these, the pieces I'm cutting off of it, I'll be able to reuse again because they're big enough.
Got a steam here.
Now let me see what this looks like in the camera.
Wow, that looks great.
Do you think that looks good?
Yeah.
All right, now I gotta do is sew it together. All right.
And there we go.
Look at that. That is beautiful. I definitely need to make me some horizontal ones too, not just all vertical or all diagonal. Because I like how that vertical, which, you know, is perfect. That's beautiful. What do y'all think? And we need to talk about the poll too. Uh-oh, something happened here. Tell Eric what you think about his block, y'all. Luane says John Clark, he is, oh, hey, John, welcome, welcome. We are working on string blocks, John. Welcome to the channel. Okay, so I haven't sewn mine together yet. So this is, let me move this. I'm gonna move this one. Something happened to Eric. Oh, there you are. All right. Tell Eric what you think about his block, and then I'll show you the one I got to sew together. Yeah, I'm going to show it to you in just a minute, Carissa. All right, they're saying, amazing, Eric, great block. So pretty, Eric, stunning. Where's your block, Katy? Linda's asking, so I'm going to take you off spotlight for a minute. And then mine's not sewn together yet, but I'll show it to you. And here's what mine's going to look like. Uh-oh.
Wow.
Wait a minute.
That looks awesome.
You think the orange works okay?
That orange is perfect for that.
Ta-da! All I gotta do is finish sewing it together. I was thinking about making the center the same as the salmon, but then I think you would lose the churn effect by doing that.
Correct. Correct. Yep.
You know what would look cool is if I'd had some of these with horizontal lines, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe vertical lines in the middle. So there's mine, and I'll have it sewn and ready for you guys to see next week when me and Eric get together again, because we're going to be making a different style of block. Let me go get. You think it'll be okay to show the book?
Yeah, why not?
Okay, be right back. Let me go get it.
Ooh. Yeah, Carissa, I would agree that orange really sets it off. John Clark is saying you're really impressed with the creativity. Thank you, John.
So
Yes,
next
Sherry,
week,
I think she is.
you what now?
No, Sherry says you're hooked now, Katy.
I am hooked. I have lots of scraps, and now I know what I'm going to do. Okay, let me cover up the. Yeah, because I don't want to get in trouble for copyright things. No, I don't know what I did with my sticky pad. All right, I'll cover it up with washi tape. How about that? So this one is called and you're using string blocks and solid colors, which if you're like me, you have plenty of solid colors or colors that'll work with the strings. And I hope you can't see that. Yeah. I have this book. Eric also has this book. This is 1,000 blocks. It's Quilt Makers. And what we're going to teach you how to make next week is this one, which uses strings to make it. That was another one you saw that you liked, wasn't there, Eric?
Was it the ladder looking one?
Yeah. I can't remember
forget
the name of that one.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can find it. Because it uses the it was either that or courthouse stairs, wasn't it?
No, it wasn't courthouse. It was
Log cabin. That's what it was. Maybe.
I don't believe so.
Hang on, I gotta find it. I can't remember the exact title of it. Of course, I would be like, oh, I forgot to write the page number down. There's a lot of cool blocks in here, though. There's even one called a barcode, and it looks like a barcode. Yeah, because you thought it was really cool, the one I showed you the other day. I don't remember the name of it, though. Well, it'll be on one of these pages that are marked.
Carissa, the book is called 1,000 Quilt Blocks by Quilt Maker Magazine. I believe that's the title, or it's something
it's
like
by Quilt Makers. It's 1,000 blocks.
And you can usually find it on Amazon.
That's where I bought mine from, was Amazon.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely going to sink some money into that encyclopedia one because it has the history of blocks in it.
Uh-huh.
There's no measurements. It's like your that book you're using to make the blocks you're making. It's similar to that in that if you want to make it, you got to figure it out yourself.
Yeah.
But it also tells when the block came out, the first year it came out, you know, and then what that current name was. I'll find the book. Yeah, I'll find the block and we'll show it to you next week, and I'll get it to you sooner than that, Eric, so you can find it in your book.
Okay.
Unless you come across it in your book first. But let me show you the book again for anyone interested. The book is not that terribly expensive. It's $30, or that's what I paid for this one. I don't know what edition it is. Let me look and see if it says what edition it is. Actually, there's not a. That's interesting. This book does not have a copyright page. Anyway, it also has on the inside cover Fawns and Porter, Cincinnati, Ohio, but it's called Quilt Makers 1,000 Blocks. Yes, Ellen says she has the Quilt Bible, and I think that's the book I'm talking about because my friend Diane, who was in here earlier tonight, she has the book, and we were talking about one of my quilt tops that I posted in my Greenland Quilter one, the one that has all those half square triangles and 4 patches in. It was from a mystery. Let me take myself off spotlight. Yeah, there we go. It was from a mystery quilt along. So the only thing she would tell you is you needed to use so many fat quarters or so much yardage. And I decided to use I used 1.5 fat quarter bundles of a batik kit. You know, there were 2 of them. And I used a whole one and then another half of one. So when I did 480 half square triangle plus 480 four patches because that was the mystery. So when she
Oh,
finally
boy.
gave us the last clue, it was supposed to make Jacob's ladder. Well, the problem was the way I used my color with my batiks, there was no way that the Jacob's ladder was even going to look good. So I decided I was going to do it my way. And I took it all apart, I took it all off the design board and I started recreating my own little design. And Diane has that Bible, like what Ellen's talking about. And she says, you know, two of those blocks looks really familiar, but she couldn't think of what they might be called. She found them in that little book Bible, and I have never seen that book. I didn't use a book when I put that quilt top together either. It came, you know, it was just me going along with it. And come to find out, I did two different blocks that I never even knew the name of. I didn't know they were actual blocks. Pretty neat, huh?
Yeah. I mean, I've done that a couple times myself where I thought, oh, I created a new block. And nope, somebody already created that before.
Yeah, exactly. It's crazy how your brain comes up with these things and you don't even realize that someone else has already come up with it themselves.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about the poll, and then we're going to talk to Eric for a few more minutes, and then we're going to call it till next week. All right, the poll was, what is your favorite way to use small fabric scraps? And the answer, there was 4 answers. You could choose string blocks, improv blocks, crumb blocks, or all of the above. 23%. Yeah.
I chose all of the above.
Yeah. 23% of the people who voted said string block. 3% improv. And I'm gonna show you my improv block in a minute. Crumb blocks, 12%. Guess what got 61%? All of the above.
Oh, okay.
And this is the center of this is an improv. And this block came from Donna of Handmade by Ying is members. She's doing a block a week from these quilt builder card decks. And you have to have all 3 to participate, and you also have to be a member of the channel to participate. So every week she gives you a new block to make. So this had what they call negative space in the middle, and I just didn't want negative space. And this block pattern is called left to right. So I stuck an improv right in the middle of it. And that's my block for this week.
Love that.
Daddy, thank you already. Oh, she must want to go outside. Okay, Eric, you want to tell them one more time about your channel, and I'm going to share the link.
So channel name is Treasure Heart Creation. Sorry, I forgot where the camera was. It's Treasure Heart Creations. I do mostly quilting related videos, but then I also dabble in other things like paper crafting and other types of crafts. So it's kind of a hodgepodge of a lot of different things. I do have a live that is on Tuesday nights, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time here in the US. And we just do a lot of sewing and a lot of crafting and a lot of just chit-chatting on these lives. So if you're up and you're, or for some of you, if you're up late or in a, what do you call them? An insomniac, you can join me. And again, that's Treasure Heart Creations.
Hang on a minute. I gotta put something in the channel. Block number 650. Someone asked what page that whirligig was on. When I find the other block, I'll put it on the community tab or something. Thank you, everyone. So, hi there, Pastry Queen. Nice to see you here. I didn't even know you were here. And hello, Cutie Rupert. All right. So next Friday, no, Saturday, sorry.
Saturday.
next Saturday, same time, same both of us, we are going to do a couple more blocks. I might just take this and recreate this or something, the one I already did, and show y'all how to do it. And I definitely will be taking a block out of there's two blocks that me and Eric liked that has to do with string blocks or crumb blocks, whichever you want to use. And we're going to make those. You ready for some more fun next week, Eric?
Yep.
I
Definitely.
really enjoyed this. This was great. And I loved how you showed us how to do that churn dash. And you shared all those different blocks with us. So now this should have given you guys lots of ideas of what to do with all your scraps. So we will see you, or I will see you next Thursday evening with Nikolai. So he's going to be putting the second most voted for Lego Christmas kit together while I sew. And then Friday, Jess is coming back, and we're going to finish making our Lori Holt seed quilt flower blocks together. And then Saturday, Eric's going to come with me, and we're going to sew more scrappy blocks. So thank you to all of you for coming here to watch us sew. Eric, thank you for agreeing to this. I really love sewing with you. You're so relaxing, and I love that about you. So
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Just make sure that everybody lives, laughs, loves, dreams. And what do you do with all of that? Make something. So good night, everyone, and see you on the next live video. Bye-bye. Holy